urged ANC supporters to remain a disciplined force for peace.
The assassination of Chris Hanni has shocked South Africa and triggered fears about the consequences in a country where violence and retaliation is very much a part of politics. He died when a man walked into the forecourt of his home and fired several times at close range.
I went over the house and I saw Chris. He was lying there, clutching a newspaper, and I think he was dead.
Chris Hanni, one of the most radical of black activists, was warned when he moved into this predominantly white, right-wing neighbourhood of Boksburg near Johannesburg that his life would be in danger. He dismissed the warning.
Chris died for peace. How shall we convince people about you?
Chris Hanni, proud to be called a revolutionary, was chief of staff of the ANC's armed wing, Umkhonto we Sizwe, before he became Secretary-General of the Communist Party. He was most popular among young radicals in the townships, and the fear now is of a backlash.
Obviously, the deed is repugnant and repulsive and horrible. Obviously, also, this is just about the most dangerous thing that could have been done.
Chris Hanni spoke his mind and disagreed even with the likes of Nelson Mandela on issues like the ANC's willingness to share power with the National Party after South Africa's first non-racial election. But most significantly, he came to abandon the idea of a continuing armed struggle, insisting in his last interview with the BBC that a negotiated solution would, in the end, prevail.
I'll tell you why. I believe that the peace forces in this country are stronger than those people who are propagating violence and indulging in violence.
Tonight, the ANC leadership went into emergency session, appealing for calm.
We will be the victors in the end, but only if our people behave as usual, in a disciplined manner.
At Chris Hanni's home this evening, Winnie Mandela, the estranged wife of Nelson Mandela, shared in the grief. Hanni was 50, married, the father of 3 daughters. He devoted more than 30 years of his life to the anti-apartheid struggle. In the event, he did not live long enough to witness the reality of democracy. John Harrison, BBC News, Johannesburg.
Accused a Polish immigrant. Today, at least one person died after police opened fire during disturbances in the Soweto township, and 2 whites were set on fire and killed in a black township near Cape Town.
This stolen arms cache could be the key to Chris Hanni's assassination. The weapons were taken from a military base 3 years ago by white extremists from the Afrikaner resistance movement. Tonight, police revealed that the pistol that killed Hanni was among those stolen but never recovered. South Africa's police commissioner admitted he was now investigating the possibility of a right-wing plot.
The consignment were actually part of consignments stolen by members of the right wing.
So there could possibly be a link?
There could be a link.
Jan Walus has now been charged with Hanni's murder. The Polish-born naturalized South African was known to be fiercely anti-communist. The murder weapon was found in his car when he was arrested, and police later discovered a hit list hidden in his flat. On that list, the names of political leaders from both the ANC and the ruling National Party. Though police have refused to reveal their identities, the hit list suggests the assassin was intent on hitting at those committed to peaceful negotiated change.
The strategy was to upset and to put stumbling blocks in the way of negotiations. We must not allow that to happen.
Extra troops have been deployed to support the president's pledge to maintain order and keep negotiations on course. But as black activists marched in memory of Chris Hanni, emotions were running high. The possibility that white extremists may have killed their hero will only serve to further inflame racial passions. In Soweto, a black demonstrator was killed in an exchange of fire with police, while barricades burned in Cape Town, and tonight 2 white men were set alight.
Generally, though, the appeals for restraint have been heeded, though political leaders, both black and white, admit it may be hard to contain the violence. Jeremy Thompson, ITN, Johannesburg.
The
anger generated by the murder of Chris Hanni is already gaining momentum. Outside Boksburg Magistrates Court this morning, where Hanni's alleged killer made his first appearance, thousands of protesters were matched by an unprecedented police presence. As the armed convoy left, taking Jan Valus back to jail, the focus of that anger was against the government. As more details of who Chris Hanni's killer was are uncovered, the ANC leadership is convinced the man was not acting alone and must have had connections with the security forces.
This killer was issued with a submachine gun, according to the police. He has got a license for that. In terms of law in this country, no civilian is supposed to be having that type of an arm. Who authorized this man to carry that weapon? Is he not part of the special forces?
Another link with the security forces is that the gun the police say was used to kill Chris Hanni came from this cache, stolen 3 years ago from the South African Air Force headquarters. At the time, Chris Hanni was critical of how easy it had been for right-wingers to get hold of the guns.
Either this man himself stole the weapons, in which case he's got contacts who opened up for him at the Air Force base. If he didn't do it, who did it for him?
It's unavoidable, I think, that suspicions are going to be cast on institutions within the state, regardless of whether the government itself was involved or not. And it's going to be extremely difficult for the government to completely reject all of those accusations that have already that people have already made.
The government is continuing to deny that they had anything to do with Chris Hanni's murder. In the townships, any denial from the government is already falling on deaf ears. Used in the Eastern Cape through petrol bombs at police Caspers. Burning roadblocks also warn outsiders, particularly whites, that they're not welcome in the area. It's this anti-white feeling that the ANC leadership is trying to contain. The most volatile group is the ANC Youth League, who've been holding rallies and marches for the past 3 days. Many of them now feel that talks with the government should be called off.
I think it would be very, very wise for the African National Congress to suspend or to pull out totally and completely from negotiations. I think now is the time where we, the African National Congress Youth League, would stand up and fight the enemy.
We are going to have the state responsible for it because we feel that they are cheating at us. We are negotiating at the same time they are busy killing us.
Despite the ANC leadership's calls for calm, it's clear the militant wing of the ANC is gaining strength. The pressure now is on the leadership to recognise that anger and channel it into organised marches and protests. In the past, Chris Hanni was seen as the one man in the leadership of the ANC who could keep the youth wing under control. His peculiar mixture of being the long-time head of the ANC army, Mkhonto Sizwe, as well as a key negotiator, made him the link between the militants and those involved with the reform process. With his death, the ANC lost that vital link, and many now feel the organisation will have to change in order to keep the youth on side.
One of the mistakes that we have made as an organisation was to elevate negotiations and not to take care of other pillars of struggle, like the pillar of mass action. It has been missing, and it has been used like a tap of water. That is one of the major mistakes that we as ANC have made. And the death of Comrade Chris Hanni